then I'll be in love.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Gulfstream Park. Thank you for joining us on New Year's Day here at Gulfstream, and it's going to be an exciting day. We had an exciting day yesterday to cap off 2016, so lots of nice stakes action yesterday, lots of nice performances too.
Lots of nice performances. We did have 4 stakes yesterday to close out 2016 in style. We saw a giant run in the Tropical Park Derby, and then we also had the Tropical Park Oaks with a big long shot upset in Ultra Brat. But I think a couple of highlights, another upset in the Via Borghese with Page for Christophe Clement, and then Taglib in the 2-mile H. Allen Jerkins. So it's definitely thrilling.
If you're looking at the stakes results from yesterday, really Taglib was the only formful winner there in terms of maybe single-digit odds. And the pick 6 was very tough to tackle. That yesterday was a mandatory payout, as was the late pick 5 and the super high 5. But the pick 6 returning 5 out of 6. There were some crazy long shots in there, and we knew going into yesterday's card that it was going to be pretty difficult.
It was a pretty tough sequence, especially the later half of the card. So hats off if you did make some money yesterday. Hopefully you did, and either way, I'm sure that everybody had a good time. I know that we certainly did to wrap it up here, but we're starting again today. We have 11 races on today's card, and to start off 2017, which is still weird to say.
Yes, and they had a big party behind us last night, so hats off to everybody for getting that out of here. But Happy New Year from all of us here at Gulfstream. Let's make some money to start things off. We will get right to the wagering menu, and we started off in race 1, a 50-cent early pick 5. That is a mandatory payout each and every day, the first 5 races of the day. As we move along to race 2, that is the dollar rolling super high 5. So no super high 5 wagering in the first race. There needs to be 7 or more betting interest. In the 6th race, that Rainbow 6, we start from scratch today, but it is a good sequence. I'll have a ticket for that. And race 7 on today's 11 race New Year's Day program, the late pick 5, 50-cent base wager, Acacia. You have a ticket for that as well. And once again, very lucky with this weather that we've been getting. It's a beautiful day here in South Florida, fast and firm on the turf for 11 races, a noon post, and we've got a lot to get to. So let's start things off with your early pick 5.
All right, we'll give a look at my ticket. I did go $54 to start it off today, using 2 in the first race. I do really like Summer Whites in here, key scratch of the other Murat-San call with Capriasca. So using Summer Whites and Playa Zaragoza, 3 deep in the next couple of legs. I thought the third race is just a very tough race. There are a couple horses that figure, but I think in one of those low-level maiden claiming races, it really is anybody's game. And then 3 deep in the 4th, which is the grade 3 Mr. Prospector. Finally get to see that exciting action in there. And then 2 deep to close it out, using Ravello's Boy and Jaden's Best in there.
Okay, and 5.5 furlongs for this non-winners of 3 lifetime condition. And we'll go back and watch a replay of 2 horses that come out of the same race, both Playa Zaragoza and Summer Whites. But I really wanted to focus in on Summer Whites at the break, because she didn't get off to a great start whatsoever. You can see she hopped at the gate. The rest of the field spotted her a few lengths. We did see even the number 6 horse get into some trouble there. But after that, she kind of recovered. And she is a type of horse that I think wants to be a bit closer to the pace, and that was so detrimental for her to get off to that start, whereas Playa Zaragoza, she got off to a better start, and I thought the track carried her that day. I wouldn't say it was a strong bias, but there was definitely something going on. I think it was a good inside speed day, which would make Summer Whites against the grain of the track.
Absolutely, and I do think that you have to give an excuse to Summer Whites for that. She does get Paco Lopez in the saddle today, and she was off slow. I agree that she wants to be more forwardly placed. That was first off the claim, moving into the barn of Murat-San call. And it's not the biggest sample size, but second off the claim, they do have positive numbers, about 4 for 13, 31% in the win column, and a positive ROI of more than $3. So maybe now she has a race under her belt. She gets off to a cleaner break in here, and a little bit of a cutback in distance to the 5.5 furlong should suit.
the only issue here would be some of the speed to her outside. But if she breaks a little bit better than she did last time out, she could have the jump on the rest of the field. But that is race 1 to start off the early pick 5. The second race on the card, a maiden $35,000 race, 7.5 furlongs there onto the turf course. 6, Gemini Rising, is where you land for trainer Graham Motion.
I did, and this one added the blinkers last time out and dropping from special weight to claiming in here. And we do have a trainer stat on Graham Motion with that kind of move, going maiden special weight to maiden claiming and going route to sprint. And it is, again, not the biggest sample size, but 5 for 13, 38% win, 62% of the time in the money, and a positive ROI of 267. Now, what I did find interesting is when you just limit this stat to on the turf, the numbers are much less, and it is not a positive ROI. So that is something to take into account. But he does have success with this kind of move.
And that's where I was looking. I had a tough time with this race. I had to kind of revert to trying to find some statistics. And like you said, maiden special weight to maiden claimers, that drop on the turf for Graham, he is only 14% and an 89-cent ROI. So those numbers were low. First time turf for Javier Negrete on the 7, prominence were low. And really the only positive stat that I could find, I didn't show it, but the 4 high security for Jason Service in maiden second time starters going from dirt to turf. He's 25% out of 24 horses, 54% in the money, and a positive ROI, $2.15. So I do think that this is a very suspicious and quick drop, considering they paid $325,000 for this horse, and he's immediately dropping and switching surfaces. But that's the main reason why I picked this horse. He's got a little bit of turf pedigree, and the barn does well with this move.
Absolutely. The dam was multiple graded stakes place. She didn't win on the turf, but she did run some good numbers on the turf. And I didn't put this horse on top for what you mentioned. They paid so much and obviously had so much hope for him. He's already a 5-year-old horse, too, just making his second start. Now taking this drop, it looks like maybe they had a lot of hope going in. Things didn't work out, and now they're just trying to get him to the winner's circle to get him moving.
That was the fear. He got a late start to the races there. He didn't make his debut performance until he was 4. So kind of an interesting race, but the one, Mr. Euro, was a horse that you used for Leah Giramati, getting to the turf for the first time. And this horse is bred for the turf, and I like that he has some speed from the rail.
And that's why I put him on there, actually 3-1 on the morning line. And this one, first time in the barn of Leah Giramati. The dam did win 3 times on the turf. Is by exchange rate. She was by Lemon Drop Kid. Added the blinkers last time out and did show a bit more speed on an off track. It looks like they did try to get him on the turf last time. So I do like him with the surface switch.
I think that might be a spread race in terms of the early pick 5, because different ways to go there in the second. As we get to the third, a low-level maiden claimer, 5.5 furlongs onto the main track. And we have an even money favorite in here that I just could not take, and neither could you.
I could not, and that is the number 3, Song Memory. I just can't take a horse that's bound to take money, even money on the morning line, and is 0 for 30 in her career. She's a 4-year-old filly. She's raced 30 times already. I know that she's dropping in class in here. I know that she ran in the glass slipper 2 starts back, but I could not trust her. I'll use her on the pick 5, but couldn't trust her on top.
And she was decently bet last time, too. She only went off at 3-1, and she just, not only is she 0 for 30, 0 for 14 on the main track, but she doesn't have a lot of early speed whatsoever, so she does look a little bit dependent on the pace. And sometimes we see in these low-level claimers that pace does collapse. There's just horses that kind of run off and then stop. Or sometimes you want to find the speed in the race. If they're the lone speed, they can just go wire to wire because nobody else wants to pass each other. But you and I both land on a horse that does have a little bit of early speed. At least she did show it in her first 2 starts on the main track, and that was against tougher company. That's the 5, Miss Kitka.
And that was sprinting on the dirt in her first 2 starts against $35,000 maiden. She did show a little bit more speed. They added the blinkers when she went over to the turf, so she hasn't yet run on the dirt with the blinkers on. Maybe with the addition of the blinkers. The number 8, Lady Greatness, does promise to show some speed from the outside as well. But I just thought, looking at the connections, a little bit of the class relief here, going from on the dirt 35 to 12.5, it looks like Miss Kitka could be the right one in here.
I really like her best, and that's a good point. First time and blinkers onto the main track, and she has the advantage of drawing an inside post position versus Lady Greatness. She's going to be at a disadvantage and maybe even be trying to be caught in that kind of chasing position. As we get to the fourth race, graded stakes action, the grade 3 Mr. Prospector, 6 furlongs on the main track, and we'll start off with going back to a replay of your favorite in here, the number 6 Delta Bluesman, in his performance, his victory in the Hall of Fame at Parks 2 starts back before they eventually went on to test foes in the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup. And this is a horse, this is Candip. I guess we can talk about Candip first. Candip in the Fabulous Strike. This is a horse who I like because although the pace did fall apart in this race, I do think that it really set up for him, and we can even see Measured, who's making a really fast closing bid on the outside. This is a horse who's proven himself locally. Last winter, he was running the best races of his life here at Gulfstream against horses like XY Jet in the Gulfstream Sprint. So he's got back class, and I know he went through a little bit of a lull in the past couple of months, but that last race I think is going to serve as a good platform for him today. And not to mention, I know you get two horses like Shaft of Light and like Delta Bluesman. They're both trained by the same trainer, both owned by the same owner, and they both have this same type of running style. What do? Do they go to the front end and kind of duke it out? Does one take back? I think it definitely has to set up for Candip as he is a closer, but he doesn't have to be too far off the pace as he showed last winter.
He doesn't. And the reason that I liked Delta Bluesman, because I agree with you about their running styles and the speed, but we do have a spotlight on Delta Bluesman. This is back in the Hall of Fame. And what I liked about this performance, you'll see coming out from the gate, is that he doesn't get the lead right away. He actually sat a little bit off of the pace here, and he got stuck behind a wall of horses as the rest of the field was off of the rail. He decided, Emisale Jaramillo, to go along the rail and to close up inside. He got the right room in there, so that certainly set up for him, whereas normally he had been always on the front end. He tried the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Sprint after that, where he was kind of over his head, but I do like that in the Hall of Fame he came from a little bit off the pace, so that showed that he wasn't just one-dimensional to need to be on the lead. But if you remember, I did go 3 deep in the pick 5 because I do think that Candip could get a good setup today.
That was a superb race, like you said, because the rail post, he didn't break as sharp. He was down on the inside. All those horses were to his outside, and he showed enough kind of grit to go between horses and close. So the multi-dimensions to his running style is nice, but he's still most effective when he's on the lead. And I can't see George Navarro deliberately taking this horse off of the pace. I think he was taken off the pace by virtue of the fact he didn't break well in the Hall of Fame. But with an outside post and given his natural speed, I would imagine he's going to go. But that's where we saw the success of Shaft of Light. He went to the lead last time out. He wired the field, whereas when he went against 3 other then company at Parks, they tried to take him back off the pace, and we see how that turned out.
And he's definitely more of a one-dimensional in the fact that he does need to be on the lead. He wired the field in the Claiming Crown Rapid Transit last time out. He won by open lengths. It was a very impressive performance. When they did try to take him off, he kind of was a lackluster race there. He didn't seem to like to be out of his element.
Exactly. And Candip, I'll try to take a shot because I think he could be at least tactically positioned in that race. We get to the 5th on the card, an open 62.50 claiming event, a mile and a 16th there onto the main track. And you land on the number 9, Ravello's Boy, but we did have some key scratches in here.
We did, and I'll admit I tried to pick against Ravello's Boy to start it out. I did really have a lot of interest in a couple other horses in here. We do have a scratch of the number 4 FENERBAHCE, who did look to show some speed. Ravello's Boy came from off of the pace last time when he was in the barn of George Navarro. He's now been claimed and in the barn of Safi Joseph Jr. He won by more than 13 lengths last time. It was just as easy as it can be. So trying to beat him, but if you go back to that last race, he's definitely the horse to beat.
He is, and he actually has back numbers that would kind of make that race more credible than what it looks. I mean, you look at a horse who was being beaten against same company recently and then just absolutely blows the field away by 13 lengths. And for George Navarro, you're always a bit skeptical. But I do think that this horse is classy, and he has every right to run back to that last race or even regress a little bit and still win. And for what it's worth, I was really interested in trying to find out, first off the claim, Navarro, first claimed off of Navarro on the dirt with low-level claimers, and people are winning at 21%. So it's not like people are not winning claiming off of Navarro. So I think that Saffie Joseph Jr. does a great job off the claim. This horse has a tactical running style, and I think the reason why he's had so much success lately is because they've figured out that he doesn't need to go to the lead and burn himself out. He actually has a nice rating gear, so potentially we will see that here today. But in terms of the pick 5, you did not single this horse, right?
I did not single this horse, no. I did, speaking of George Navarro being claimed off of, we have a horse that he just claimed, and that is the number 3, Jaden's Best. And it looks like this one was most successful when he was actually in the barn of Marcial Navarro going out to the lead. So I do expect him to show a bit more speed today.
And it's kind of a crazy type of horse to try to beat Ravello's Boar, because he was absolutely crushed by him when he faced him 2 starts back. So as much work that George Navarro does, as much positive work off the claim, it's really hard to see this horse maybe stepping that much forward to turn the table. So that's where I think you can have a little bit of confidence in the favorite. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will tackle the 20-cent Rainbow 6 and the late pick 5. There's still much to come right after this commercial break.
And Gulfstream is pulling away. Gulfstream blows them away with an eye-opening performance. Awesome again has won. Gulfstream kicking clear.
January 28th at Gulfstream Park, an icon takes flight. The world's richest thoroughbred horse race. 12 of the sport's finest horses. One race. $12 million on the line. Watch, wager, witness. Go to PegasusWorldCup.com for more.
Welcome back to Gulfstream today. Gabby Gaudet joined by ACACIA Courtney. Now looking at the 20-cent Rainbow 6. It was very difficult to tackle yesterday afternoon. It was a mandatory payout, and it only returned 5 out of 6, just to show you how difficult that indeed was. I think a little bit more of a manageable sequence today, and we will show the ticket. $57.60 will do it for me. I did not find a single in the sequence, and I thought in the first race, a nice competitive maiden special weight on the turf, you have to use a couple different options here. So 1, 2, 5, 6 for me. As we move along, 1, 7, 11, 7, 9, 11, and then 2 deep by 2 by 2 to cap off the sequence. I do have confidence in race 10 with just using those 2 horses. I like the 5 and the 8 in there. I could have even used way more horses in the last race, though, but trying to keep this on a lower budget. 9 furlongs on the turf is where we start, ACACIA, and the 2 Blenheim Palace for Shug McGahee is where you land.
I landed on this one. To be honest, I actually did scratch into her because I did originally have the number 7 Bonnie Arch on top. I thought that horse looked like she was really sitting on a winning performance, but you really can't ignore Blenheim Palace. John Velasquez is going to be in the saddle, and this one's just a beautifully bred filly, and you know, she ran pretty well last time out, and she's coming out of a good race as well. And we do have a trainer stat on Shug McGahee with maiden special weight on the going a turf route and in the money last time out. 28% win, 58% in the money, and a positive ROI of 204. So that is certainly something to like. He does do very well with this. So this horse was a 3rd last time out in special weight at Belmont, going 1.25 miles. So I think that she might be sitting on a good performance in here.
Yeah, she definitely has fitness under her belt, and she was the beaten favorite last time, going that 1.25 miles at Belmont. But I don't think the race necessarily set up for her. And this is a problem that I've kind of realized, or I've paid attention to at in the New York circuit. A lot of riders like to take back off the pace and not utilize the horse's early speed, and that's kind of was the case, at least watching the replay in her last race. Nobody went, and she got caught behind a slow pace that she could not close into. Prior to that, her previous turf race, Sassy Little Lila came back and ran a great race in the Winter Memories. So some class edge there. I do think that she is the one to beat, and I think she'll get a little bit better of a pace to run for her style. The one Tap It Together, though, should probably be decently bet off of her second place performance last time out. And I wanted to show this replay too. This was at Belmont on the 5th of October. And she, we can see them breaking out of the start. And this can always be a very difficult place to find position, and we can see her down on the inside in the Augustin Stable colors, number 3. She checks really badly going into the first turn there, and has to kind of recover from there. She saves ground. She is on the rail, but then she kind of angles out, and I thought this was a good ride by Joel Rosario to angle her out at the perfect time. You can see her head just kind of in the air, and she just doesn't show to me that follow through that I want to see in potentially a short priced horse.
That's what I was really noticing too. She had her head up in the stretch. She didn't look very comfortable, even though she was jostled around at the start a little bit. And as I said, it was tough finding that position early. So I did have to pick against her today. I put her third, as did you. And of course, she's another one that's beautifully bred, a filly by Tap It out of the Champion Mare Forever Together. So, you know, she has the pedigree as well. She's had 6 turf races. She just hasn't been able to get it yet. And she still looks a little green to me after 6 races.
Well, and this is what we were talking about yesterday with Inspector Lindley and big turf races, especially here at Gulfstream. Closers have such a more difficult time working out a trip than horses that have a little bit of tactical speed. And I think that is why she hasn't yet broken her maiden. Look, she's beautifully bred. She's got a lot of talent, but things don't always go her way. So I'm going to try to go against her a little bit today, but the 6 Glory to Kitten is one too. We saw lead along the winner of her last race at Churchill. She came back to be 3rd here in allowance optional claimer. And I do think that that was a good move, a good race, but that race did set up for a lot of closers won that race.
Absolutely, and
performed in that race.
Exactly, and yeah, they can all win at one point. Yeah, but you know, I thought that it was a good performance by Glory to Kitten. She drifted a little bit late, but she was pretty game in the stretch, and it did set up for the closers there. But you know, she's another one that will not be as forwardly placed, whereas Blenheim Palace probably does promise to be closer to the pace today. So that could very well just set up for her based on tactics alone in this race.
Okay, that is race 6 to kick off the Rainbow 6, the 7th on the card, a restricted allowance optional claimer, 6 furlongs on the main track. And we now take a look at the late pick 5.
We'll take a look at the ticket in here. And I did go 3 deep to start it off using both George Navarro's with Dreaming of Nino and Bulldozer, as well as the number 7 Wild Impulse. Then 2 deep in the next. I do really like Final Encore in there. I spread in the 9th race using 4 horses in there, a lot of them coming out of the same races we'll get to in a bit. And then just using 2 in the 10th as well. I think a different 2 than you did. And then 2 deep in the last one as well. But I agree, the last race is not the easiest one to close out the sequence. $48 for me.
And we start things off here with the 6 furlong event. And George Navarro, as you mentioned, it brings out 2. And looking on paper, I do think that Dreaming of Nino is probably the one to beat and will probably be pretty decently bet. This horse is coming out of 2 other than allowance optional claiming company. This is a much easier field than what he has been facing, and he has speed from the rail, always something to definitely consider. But with these, the main concern is why they're not protecting this horse in here. He's hung in here for the 12,500 tag.
He is. It's kind of like a for sale sign up. I agree with you there. He's got a lot of early speed, but there is a lot of other speed in here. At least I thought, trying to read the race in here. There are a lot of horses that do like to be on or close to the front end. And Dreaming of Nino does have the advantage of drawing the rail. He may just blast off from the inside and not be caught at all. But I did go to the other George Navarro, if you will, who looks like he's going to be coming off the pace. And that's the number 11 Bulldozer. He is to the outside in a 6 furlong sprint race. So he does have to work out a trip from that outside post, but he is one that does like to come from a bit off the pace, which I did think was beneficial. We do have a trainer stat on George Navarro in the past 5 years with horses that won last time out in dirt sprints at Gulfstream Park. I tried to make it specific and see if I could find not good numbers, and that wasn't successful at all. 37% win and a 275 ROI. So he is very good at putting back-to-back wins together, and that was against State Bred Optional Claiming Company.
Okay, the George Navarro horses are definitely two you want to respect. I use both of them in terms of the pick 6, but I did go kind of outside the box here with the 7 Wild Impulse, first off the claim for George Abreu. Blinkers do go on, and I just liked him because I thought he had sneaky class in here. There's horses who are kind of dropping from 2 other than Allowance Company. I understand that, and those are probably hold the class advantage, but he did break his maiden against Maiden Special Weight Company at Delaware. But even prior to that, he was running competitive races in New York against Maiden Special Weight Company. Now, he was a little bit flat last time out, but I like the blinkers on to sharpen him up. And, you know, limited starters so far, but George Abreu's just done really great work with what he's started.
And you do like to see that John Velasquez climbs aboard first off the claim, too. And I agree, the addition of blinkers certainly might help him not to flatten out in the stretch so much.
The 8th race on the card as we turn our pages, a non-winners of 2 lifetime condition for that $16,000 tag, 5 furlongs on the main or on the turf, excuse me, and scratch the 3 Bermuda Triangle and the also eligible the 13 Red Cat, and that's where you land on the 11 final encore.
Yes, I did, and this one showed some speed last time out. Again, it does have to work out a trip from the outside post, and that is the biggest concern for me here. But looking at the rest of the field, I liked the last couple of performances from this one. It's kind of been getting the second place or third place finishing bug there, but he does get some class relief in here for Ralph Nix, Tyler Gaffleone in the saddle, and looks like he's been working very steadily coming into this race as well.
He does get a drop in class, which I think will help him, but the fact that he has been the beaten favorite in the past 3 starts, I just could not use him on top, actually using him third in here. He strikes me as a type that no matter the level, he always runs well, but doesn't necessarily win. You look at him facing Allowance Company, even Stakes Company, and he always puts in a really good effort. But then he dropped to 30,000 last out, and he still put in a similar type of performance. So I did think that he might be a bit vulnerable. The 9 Still Burning was a horse that I like. The blinkers go on. He comes back to the turf. Now, his turf races are nothing exciting whatsoever. He was beaten 8 lengths and then 28 lengths in his next start. But the second start, that was 2 turns over a soft turf at Delaware, and his first start was going against Maiden Special Weight Company on a soft turf. So my thought here is he's bred nicely for the turf. Jane Sabelli does great work with her turf sprinters. Blinkers go on to sharpen him up, and he's been in form and showing speed on the dirt. So I think that he could transition that today.
He certainly could. He's coming off a layoff, so he will have to come back, but we do see horses looking fit off the layoff for Jane Sabelli, and he gets the blinkers on for his return to the racetrack. The number 2 Dubai Bob intrigued me, and this is an interesting one. I'll admit, I was very hesitant about taking this horse off of such a huge layoff and dropping all the way down to the maiden 10 level, but he showed speed. That was on the dirt. He got that win. I looked at it kind of as the connections, just wanting to get a race under him off of that layoff. He's coming back to the turf now. He certainly did run well, but that was before such a huge layoff a couple years ago.
That was when Rosie Napravnik was still riding, so that goes to show you how long of a layoff that was. Hats off to the connections. I looked at this race and I was like, wow.
It's amazing.
The last time this horse ran was on the turf with Rosie Napravnik. Now that's a while. And, he's 7 years old. That was a fantastic performance, and you know, maybe he could build upon that race. I looked in a different direction to the 7 Northern Rail. Just because, again, this is a horse who's been in decent form on the main track lately. He's shown speed on the main track. He got into a little bit of early trouble in his turf debut at Parks. He didn't break well, and then he just kind of chased the rest home. But he looks like a horse that definitely does better when he can manage to get closer to the pace. He's by Wildcat Air out of a Pulpit mare. He's bred top and bottom to like the turf. So I think sometimes you have to look at turf pedigree and just hope for the best in these types of races. But that one is difficult. I would say in the sequence, maybe you want to spread in that race because there might be some long shots. I could see that being an upset potential type of race. Race 9, starter allowance optional claimer, 5 furlongs here onto the turf, and we have several horses that are coming out of the same race. So I did want to start off with a replay here. The 10, Spectacular Me, My Sister Caro, a couple other horses, even Forest Funds in here. We wanted to show Spectacular Me and My Sister Caro. I thought My Sister Caro put in all of the dirty work in this race. She ran a fantastic race, whereas Spectacular Me, well, she got another dream trip once again. And my thought is, when is the luck going to run out? We also saw Forest Funds. I believe we'll show a head-on here coming down the stretch. Forest Funds gets bumped pretty much sideways coming down the lane. We can see she's in the pink silks there. And I thought that completely took away her momentum. The one horse in here that was unscathed was Spectacular Me, and she wound up winning.
And that's very fair to be able to be a little bit hesitant about taking her. She's looking for the 3rd win in a row, and she really has had dream trips in her last 2 starts. She won that starter allowance at Laurel on Claiming Crown preview day 2 starts back, came back, won the Claiming Crown Distaff Dash last time, and she did get the dream trip again with Jose Ortiz. Just a beautiful ride by him to keep her out of trouble, really, and she did have luck on her side that day. I just think, she's been in such good form. She has Luis Saez in the saddle today. I did give her a little bit of an edge today, but by no means was I going to single her in here. I agree. My Sister Caro is a must-use based off of how she really did handle herself in that race.
I think that the luck is going to run out for Spectacular Me. I love Luis Saez and Steve Glaceris. I think they both do a fantastic job, but something's got to give. So I'm leaving Spectacular Me off of the pick 6. I'm taking an aggressive approach because you have to in one race at least. And I really do like Forest Funds. I think today is the day for her because initially I was thinking about picking My Sister Caro, but then I kind of looked at other speed in here. I think Special, of course, the number 7, is going to soften her up a little bit. There are other sneaky types of speed in here, and it's going to set up for maybe a closer. That will help Spectacular Me, but it will also help Forest Funds, who really was knocked off stride during the stretch. So hopefully we can flip-flop there. I did use the 8 on top and just the 8-5 in the pick 6 as we get to the 10th race, a very nice allowance optional claimer, 1/16 onto the turf. And this is a very nice race. I guess we should start things off with the number 5, Lipstick City, who I believe is a morning line favorite, who did come out of the grade 3 Jessamine. She was precocious enough to close like a freight train first time out against Maiden Special Weight Company. And if we could show that replay from Keeneland on the 12th of October, she broke a little bit awkwardly. This is the 7 there, yes. She does get bumped around at the start and then taken back from off the pace. But I don't really think that it caused that much of an issue considering that she is a closer. I think it's more detrimental if the horse is more inclined to go towards the lead. And we can see here at the quarter pole, she was stifled a little bit at the quarter pole, but she never really ran on from there. And we did see horses making up a little bit of ground. Now, La Coronel, the winner of this race, she went on to run in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. She was a trebled 6 in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. That was a good field. Her running style makes me a bit skeptical to pick her on top.
That is why I picked against her as well, because even in her debut, she was last early, then very wide. She managed to get the win that day by a neck, and then she broke awkwardly next in the Jessamine. They thought so highly of that performance and how she closed so impressively in her debut to put her right into grade 3 company. And she was squeezed back a little bit, but she didn't really run on like I thought. And you were talking about when does the luck run out for Spectacular Me. And you wonder, can a horse like this just consistently break slow and close and try to make up ground? Can she really get it done today? I know it's Chad Brown, certainly a must-use, but I did go elsewhere. And I actually do like a bit of a price in here with the number 1, Bitacora, who's coming off of a couple of stakes bids. She broke her maiden in her first start on the turf, a couple starts back, but last time out in the wait a while, it was a sloppy track taken off of the turf, but I thought it was a very game performance considering how she was cut off early, and she just really rallied from the clouds last time. So she is a close closing type, but I think hopefully she'll be a bit closer today.
But that was on the dirt, and this is on the turf. And my concern with her was her performance against Stakes Company. What did you make of that performance?
Well, I thought it was an okay one. She really flattened out there. I don't know if she was necessarily ready for Stakes Company. You do have some horses that have fared well in stakes in here. I liked her maiden win, and that's kind of what I'm going back. She did have some trouble in the maiden win, so that's what I'm going off of in here. But it's fair to take a wait-and-see approach. Again, trying to get cute with the price.
Okay, the 8 Tammet was the one that I went for here. Second-time starter for Mark Casse. I thought that this was an explosive victory because she really didn't get that strong of a pace to close into, and yet she did, and she just kind of, like I said, it was just kind of an explosive win. She was a little green down the lane. I did notice kind of shifting gears a little bit a couple of times, but she just showed her class and her natural talent. She is very nicely bred, too. The mare is actually kin to a Group 1 winner, the winner of the Prix de Paris, so some very nice European graded Group 1 pedigree for this filly, and she again is kind of a closer, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw her maybe a little bit closer to the pace today, and I just think that she's got a lot of talent for a second-time starter.
She certainly does, and Mark Casse has 2 in here, also has to the outside the number 9, Gale Force, and certainly if Tammet does run like she did in her debut, you do have quite a few closing types in this race, or horses that have, in their early races, have just come from so far back. So hopefully either they'll all come running in the stretch, or maybe tactically find a little bit of a closer advantage.
Well, you make a good point. I know Gale Force didn't show up against Allowance Company last time out, but in her debut performance, she won Grade 3 as a first-time starter, and she showed speed that day, and it looks like she's been working well at Palmetto, so maybe she could revert back to what we saw in her first start and show some speed. So this is an interesting race. I do think the main speeds are kind of more towards the inside with the 3 Bill's Legacy and Wedding Jitters. That's why I liked Bill's Legacy. I don't think that from a class perspective she's at the same level, but tactically she could have a little bit of an advantage. So very nice featured race on the card, or second featured race. We do have a Grade 3 today in the Mr. Prospector. We get to the 11th and final, a maiden $20,000 race, 5 furlongs on 2. The turf 6, the number 9, excuse me, Main Street Movie for Ronnie Werner is the speed and is coming out of pretty much the most consistent races.
And that's why I landed on this gelding in here. You basically just said my main reasons for picking him on top. Drew outside last time, has kind of an outside post again today in the finale, but does have the speed, and coming out of a pretty solid competition, did run at this level last time at the maiden 20. Came off of about a 10-month layoff back in October, moved over to the turf, and I thought that those 2 turf races were pretty consistent.
I'll go with a little bit of a price here. The 4 Holiday Prince. Terry Pompey, she does great work with her horses making their second start off a layoff, so I liked those statistics. This horse is bred to handle the surface, and I like the fact that second start off the layoff, cutting back in distance from a 2-turn 7.5 race to the 5 furlong sprint, and has a little bit of natural speed. So this race, I would say though, if your funds will let you, definitely use more than the 2 horses that I used with the 4 and 9. But I do think that the 9 is the horse to beat. I was just kind of trying to get creative with the 4.
And that's fair. And as you said, you definitely do have to spread a bit. In these final races, you never know who's going to jump up and surprise you.
Okay, 11 races on tap. Noon post, we do have the Grade 3 Mr. Prospector on today's New Year's Day card. We hope you come out and join us here at Gulfstream Park, and best of luck.